Welcome to this Ultrix University guide on the creation and deployment of Ultriscape Multiviewer layouts. In this video, we will become familiar with the tools available to build layouts quickly and efficiently in the user interface. We will discuss and understand how pips and scalars are managed in the Ultrix platform, and we will learn how to make unique, appealing, and informative displays with the use of custom backgrounds, such as different colors or imported images, and pip widgets, including UMD and tally, audio meters, closed captions, and clip data. And we will implement clocks and custom timers to help manage productions. In doing so, we will learn that fully customized and effective displays can be created and deployed extremely quickly. To create our own layouts within the Ultrix Ultriscape Multiviewers, first we open Dashboard and navigate to the Ultrix, and then to the Ultriscape, and then on to the Layout Editor. The Layout Editor contains a canvas for building our displays, a toolbox of common items such as pips and UMDs, some settings down the bottom for pip sizes and background colors, and the navigation bar along the top. The navigation bar along the top contains things like new layout, so that we can create new blank layouts, the ability to save and load layouts to and from the Ultracore. The Ultracore is the controller in the Ultrix. And so by saving to the Ultracore, layouts are made available to be loaded into multi-viewer heads and are also accessible by other users with other instances of Dashboard. We also have a set of templates stored within the Ultracore. If we load layout template from Ultracore, we can see, for example, a quad split. And these templates can then be manipulated, add and delete items, move them around, and use this as a starting point for the rest of our display. When placing items on the canvas, typically we'd select an item and click where we'd like it to be. If we click and hold, we can drag an outline to where we want it, so we can place it more precisely. So if we select all of these items by holding Control while clicking, we can then use the Align tool, and in this case to align the tops. Or most of the time we'll turn on grid snapping and then toggle the grid visibility to on, and this will give us far more accurate item placement. All actions performed within the layout can be undone and redone using the undo and redo buttons. If we open the edit menu, then we can see the undo and redo keyboard shortcuts, as well as copy paste. So if we wish to copy these two pips, we can select them and do Ctrl C, Ctrl V. To move items en masse, if we hold Control to click all of the items, and then continue holding Control and click and drag anywhere else on the screen, we can move these as desired. Within the toolbox, we have three pip sizes, A, B, and C. The sizes of these are shown below, so 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 are our current settings, and these are configurable to different sizes. You can have three different sizes of pips in one display. Pip A and B are scaled by the frame, so if we go to the Ultriscape configuration, we can see that our scalars in this frame are set to 1/4 and 1/2, and we have additional options in the drop-down. This means that all of the inputs of the frame are scaled to 1/4 and 1/2, and any multi-viewer head can use them. Since the scaling is done centrally, all of the heads must be running layouts using the same A and B pip sizes. So we'll now start inserting pips. In this case, A and B are 1/4 and 1/2, matching my frame settings. So I can start placing pip A's, and I can place multiple pip B's in the same display. pip-C is a special case. Only one instance of pip-C can appear in a single layout, but it gives us a bit more flexibility as it's scaled by the head itself. The head receives the original unscaled source and scales it to the pip-C settings specified in the layout. So every head can be running differently scaled pip-Cs. So once we've created a display that we like, we can go ahead and deploy it in our system. So we'll start by saving this to the Ultra core. So now that's saved and available in the Ultra core, we can go and deploy it to one of our heads. So we go to the Ultriscape and we go to Head Selection. And within the head selection, we can see all of the layouts that are saved within our system. If I bring up the return feed here, we can see the MV1 layout that is currently loaded in slot 2 head 1, which we're using for this demo. So I can then load my new layout and see it running as expected. You can see here that one of the layouts has an exclamation mark. This is because it contains a 1/3 resolution pip, and our frame is not configured to generate 1/3 scaled signals. If I wish to use this Ultrix in a flyaway, for example, it's quite possible that I would have a mix of layouts with different resolutions, depending on the requirements of the job and the preferences of the client. So for example, I may go back to configuration. I may set the scaling for pip A to 1/3, sacrificing my 1/4 scaling in the process. And then if I return to my head selection, now we can see that the layouts with 1/4 resolution pips are not available, but the layout with a 1/3 is and can be deployed to a head. And then I can revert back to 1/4. We'll lose the 1/3 layout because it's not deployable. And we can redeploy one of our 1/4 resolution layouts. These changes apply across the entire frame, and thus all multi-viewer heads, so you should be aware of that when changing these pip resolutions. We can further customize our displays by modifying the background. The background options we have here are solid color or an image. For solid color, we can edit that by selecting from the palette, for example this green, or we can select one of our background images. In this case, I have this Ross logo already imported, but we can upload our own images by going to File and Upload Background Image. Then we'll go to Choose File and we'll find an image on our PC. In this case, I have changeoverbg.png. There must be no spaces in the file name. Once we've loaded that image, we'll get a little preview window here, and we can hit OK. And then it becomes available to us in the background dropdown. So I have this little playout chain here, and I can place elements on top of it. And I can even use a UMD as a static text object to add a bit more customization. And we save that to the Ultra core. And we go ahead and select it for our multi-viewer head. In this case, that's slot 2 head 1. So we select the layout and hit apply. To add tally and UMD to our multi-viewer pip, we have the UMD and tally objects in the toolbox. We click on the UMD and then click within a pip, and it will automatically be placed and associated with that pip. This will currently show the source name routed to this multi-viewer pip. If we want to display dynamic text using the TSL UMD protocol, we would tick the tally box. and the external tally and text would drive the display in this UMD. We can also add separate tally indication within the pip by selecting tally and again clicking in the pip to assign it. And we can enable tally for the background of the pip by clicking the pip and ticking the tally box. And we now get a blue box showing us the tally indication. These items are repositionable and resizable. Clicking within the pip simply creates the item and associates it with that pip to start with. So if I shift these outside of the screen, shift the tally to the side, shift the UMD down, they still belong to the pip and will move together with the pip. So this is very useful for creating more interesting displays like this, where, for example, we can just copy paste, Control C, Control V, and create another instance of the same pip. To add audio metering to our pips, we have the meter object. So I click within the pip once to place 1 meter, and I click again to place a second. These again can be moved around independently, but will move together with the pip. This one in this case is set to 2 channels showing 1 and 2. And in this case, this second one, we could, for example, monitor a surround, set it to 3 and 4, and then up the channels to 6. And again, it all moves together with the pip. Closed captions are placed by selecting the closed caption object, and again clicking within a pip so that they belong specifically to the source routed there. And we may wish to resize and move these. And there are options for different types of captions in the drop-down. Clip data will give us the data from a Dreamcatcher source, so we can place that. So if I copy and paste that now, I have 2 instances of that pip, and I can save that into the Ultracore. And we'll go and deploy that to the head. So once I've created a pip that I like, as well as being able to copy and paste within the layout, I can also save that pip for reuse in different layouts. I have the option here to save pip to Ultracore. So let's call it the everything pip. Then I place a new pip and load the setup from the Ultracore. All right, everything pip. And there we go. And then if we want to quickly copy and paste that around, we can. So if we load a template from the Ultracore that has a bit of space for some text, clocks, and timers, like this one, we can start by adding in some static text. So by placing a UMD without placing it in a pip, it becomes a text object. Has the ability to either show the multiviewer head name or some static text. Let's call this display 1. And then we can place some clocks. So let's click on the clock object. And here we've put the default clock. That's the time of day. And then if we want additional clocks, so for example, if I place 2 clocks here, both are currently set to default clock. So we need to create a new clock in the clock tab at the top. So I go to the clocks tab and we'll see that I have 3 clocks defined here. The default clock for time of day, the stopwatch, and the countdown timer for 5 minutes. In a new system, there'll only be the default clock and stopwatch and countdown wouldn't be here. So to add additional clocks, maybe with time zone offsets or stopwatches, we can right click within the table and we get the option to insert row below. So I've inserted a new row. I can name that something different. So let's call it a 10-min countdown timer. And we'll set that to countdown and set the 10 minutes. So these clocks are used across all the multi-viewer layouts. So if I put this countdown timer in 3 different layouts deployed on 3 different heads of this frame, then when I run the countdown timer, they'll all show the same running time. If we go back to the layout editor, I now have a 10-minute countdown timer available in my drop-down list. So let's save that to the Ultra core. And deploy it. To control the clocks, I have a clock control section. We can see all of my current clocks. So we've got the default clock, stopwatch countdown, and our new 10-minute timer. If we hit play here, then we've got our 10-minute timer running. And these can also be controlled by dashboard and by ROS-talk commands from external devices. So we can pause that timer, reset, start it running again. So putting together everything we've learnt, we can now build displays very quickly and efficiently. So we'd start by looking at our configuration, checking that our scalars for our frame, so 1/4 and 1/2 in this case, match up to our A and B pips that we specified for our layout, and C can be whatever we require for this job. So we'll enable the grid, check that the snapping is on, so we can get going quickly, and we'll start dropping in pips. If we want UMD, we could then go and apply those. Audio meters, put tally on, and by building up our pips like this quite quickly, we can just do Control-C, copy-paste, drop in the additional pips we want. We've already got our meters, already got our UMDs and our tally on them. And then we've got a little bit of free space in the middle so that we can add some more data. So we'll add a bit of static text saying that we're in PCRA. We could add a clock for the time of day. And we could add a countdown timer. So let's say this 5-minute one. And then we'll save that into our Ultra core. And we can go and deploy that. So we check our head selection, slot 2, head 1 in this case, and apply that layout.